Bitcoin at 200,000. Dollars in the year 2025, the moon predictions are back again. Why this actually sounds more than realistic and how you should especially prepare for it now, we will clarify in this video. Also, whether we might have already seen the bottom, whether it will continue upwards now, or if we might see another setback. All that and much more, plus an annoying rug pull that we also experienced yesterday. That also put a bit of pressure on Bitcoin's mood. I would say let's not waste any time. Let's dive straight into the news. Now, new UP Trend VIP trading. Your opportunity to copy the signals of two professional traders for free. They managed to grow an account from $4,000 to $30,000 within 2 months. The results in the group are also impressive. All you need for this is a deposit of $100 into your BingX account. You can find all further information below in the description. Let's start briefly with the crypto bubbles. Yes, it's quite restrained at the moment. Most of it is in the negative right off the bat, and it's already hiding back here. Mantra is almost 90% down. This might have triggered one or another negative spiral for some altcoins, but we'll take a closer look at that in detail now. Plus, what might make sense for Mantra now, because some people in my group have already written, yes, at the dip, Mr. Here, you could buy more cheaply. Now, I would personally be cautious. What is also worth noting positively is finally the fear and greed index. It has gone up again. So if you look at this here, we are now at least, so we are happy about small steps. Now at a value of 29, but once again, a truly big and incredible thank you to you. Many sincere thanks for over 3,000 clicks and that within 1 day and 183 likes. Maybe we can reach the 200 mark today. It would be amazing because it supports my hours of research, plus the growth of this channel, of course, because it gets more exposure. So if you're up for it now, feel free to leave a free like. And if you're asking yourself at this point, Daniel is nice, but what is this all about? This is about crypto news, honest, fact-based, transparent, neutral, plus a daily trading setup, where you can also earn a few euros if you're interested. Then feel free to leave a free subscription now, plus activate the bell so you don't miss any important information. A warm welcome to all newcomers. And now let's continue. And so let's start directly with Mantra. Yes, you can see that here, by the way, I didn't share this for once, but otherwise, if you want to follow me on X, I always post all the news there. Feel free to check the description. There's the link or search for uptrend info. In any case, with Mantra, the discussions are currently heating up. Was it a rug pull? Was it not? In total, we're talking about 6 billion. US dollars, even much, much more. During this time, what was liquidated at its peak, the price was down 90%. And yes, the big discussion is there. But in the end, I can only tell you the loss of trust is there regardless. So now, regardless of whether it was a rug pull or not, the danger simply exists. If these prices should rise again, then some investors will still sell. And that usually means quite a few. They'll just sell again. So I remind you of Terra Luna, where everything was set up again. Yes, in the end, where is the price? Today. Here is the chart for it again. Well, this could pass as the Cologne Cathedral, but I won't make too many jokes for all those affected. You just don't expect something like this. This project was incredibly hyped in the RWA sector. Well, and then something like this happens. What I want to highlight once again at this point, and this is the topic here again, is that we have quite a gap between the tokens that are on the market and the tokens that are still locked somewhere will be released, etc. And you could see this here, once again, between the circulating supply and the total supply. There is indeed a certain gap, but that doesn't necessarily mean it caused this 90% drop we saw here. So, I've also heard the theory that a big whale just pressed the button and then panic ensues. And this FUD then leads to prices crashing massively in a very short time. And with that, let's move directly to Bitcoin. And one might ask, is this 200K forecast realistic in any form? We must not forget the last few weeks have been dominated by one topic, and that was the tariffs. Unfortunately, the tariffs have precisely led to risk assets performing worse. The only big winner, one as I have repeatedly shown, was gold, which crawled from one all-time high to the next. But especially when you look at the traditional markets. So whether it's the S&P 500 or the NASDAQ. Wow, that was volatility like we usually only know from crypto. However, if you make a long-term comparison like what you see here, you can conclude that Bitcoin is clearly the outperformer. Yes, of course you can have that discussion again. Yes, it's not been established for that long and blah, blah, blah and sunshine. But in the end, if you look at it now and also consider this massive volatility, Bitcoin is, without giving too much away, the clear winner. What we must not forget here, some people always look at this. There is a common goal, and some, yes, of course, they now consider Trump crazy for what he's doing. I still say in the long term. What he's doing with the tariffs is not negative for crypto. It's just initially, it was completely terrible because the entire global economy was shaken. But if you look at it now, Trump wants a weak dollar. Historically, a weak dollar has always been very, very good for Bitcoin. And yes, you don't notice it much yet. Massively, but what you can observe here is that the dollar is gradually losing its footing. So if you look here, now it's also, this line here has been crossed. Unfortunately, I can't show it any other way, but here this gray horizontal line. And therefore, one can now observe where the dollar is moving further, whether it will drop another level, and if this might possibly boost Bitcoin. Because what we should also be aware of is that there is increasingly more relaxation regarding the whole tariff issue. And everyone is already strongly assuming that the USA and China will sit down together very soon. That means even if some news were to come out and somehow everything were to be ramped up again, which I can hardly imagine, I don't believe that this will significantly occupy or move the markets in any way. The topic is now done and dusted. So we all know, yes, okay. Inflation is also lower. The Fed has also announced they are ready to react here. Let's see what statements come out in May. And perhaps in the meantime, the agreement between the USA and China. And with that, the tariff conflict might be completely put to rest. So these are all factors. Factors that which have had a very negative impact can now serve as a very quick springboard into the other direction. And with that, it could start relatively quickly. If we take a look at the NASDAQ here, let's switch to the 4-hour view. Then you can see here, well, it's already a good climb back up. So there was no massive setback anymore. Yes, I can imagine today that this gap will be closed again, of course, but from this point, I can definitely imagine it continuing upwards. And maybe we will have this critical area included again this week, and hopefully we will reach new records and new values upwards. This is also completely positive for Bitcoin and logically for the altcoins as well. And before we get to the trading setup here, a brief note on that. You can simply see here, well, we always had this crossing of the white line and the yellow line or a touch. And with that, we reach the top. What we see here, the yellow line is now turning away again, so to speak. And even at the current state, we are talking about a value of $150,000 per Bitcoin. Now we must not forget, as we have seen here, for example, when the whole thing gains momentum, then does the white line initially rise massively? and the yellow one, of course, at the same moment as well. We just don't see that yet. This means, conversely, it is very realistic that according to at least this value, of course, all viewed historically, but that according to this value, we could indeed all reach a range of $200,000. Now, directly to the trading setup, what you can take away for yourself today, because it is irrelevant whether Bitcoin stands at 200K in the long term. That's interesting for the hodlers, but you want to make profits now. So let's take a look at that right away. By the way, if you're looking for a cool exchange, and there are some bonuses for you, whether it's a deposit bonus, trading bonus in volume, etc., it's way too much. I'll just display it here for you. In any case, if you're interested, I use Bitcoin myself. It can definitely make sense. Check the description. There's the registration link and all further details. And now let's get started. So let's take a direct look at the daily view and see that there's quite a bit lying around, both above and below. So most of it is probably in this area, which could definitely be a zone that might be targeted again, possibly by the market makers right before the market opening so that it then goes back up in the other direction. So it's definitely conceivable. One should keep an eye on it. You could also place 1 or 2 limit orders. If you then also look at the 3-day view, it's almost even wilder. So we have quite attractive zones up here, but also down here where they could definitely be picked up. So it's just a back and forth kind of thing. You don't really know. It's practically the same path up as it is down. I could now imagine before the personal opening that we might drift into this zone here again and then next pick up this zone up here, especially since more has probably built up here at the top if it should go in the opposite direction. So let's just wait and see. But I also see it now, even if it might sound a bit bearish. In the short term, I can definitely say that in the long term, with Bitcoin, given what's happening right now, I am definitely bullish. Now, briefly again on Bitcoin in the 4-hour view. So you see here beautifully this double bottom that has formed here and thus has provided a beautiful base. Then here the sharp rise. Then we had another pullback here, but still, and then climbed cleanly upwards. And we are also on a larger scale, let's not forget at this point, out of the downtrend. So if we look here again, you can see very clearly, Samoi, this is worked out cleanly. And now we have other zones here that we should keep an eye on much, much more. But as it looks here, that was effectively our base, at least for now, unless something else happens and it won't go any lower, which would also be positive. Now, a quick look at the hourly view, and there's one thing I'm keeping an eye on. So if we see here, a pretty good base has already formed. So I find it hard to imagine that we will slip below this 83,270 again. We'll have to wait and see. But if you look, we've had quite a lot of movement here initially. Then there was a rejection here. Then it continued upwards. Well, let's set aside the breakthrough here for now. There was a testing here and especially here and here as well. So this is already a zone that has provided quite a lot of support. Therefore, one might keep an eye on whether one could say, okay, maybe open 1 or 2 positions there again. It becomes just as interesting upwards because yesterday we had this high here. I'm marking it on the edge. Yesterday, this high at just over 86,000. And now it's important to break through it sustainably. We need that because otherwise we'll just be drifting around down there again. And then we can talk about the next zones and form, but that's the next level that should be cleanly broken through and also see a daily close so that we can move further up into other regions. Looking further at XRP, it looks pretty empty, if one may note that. Sure, a big bar down here. Let's wait and see if whether and when it will be picked up. Here we have at least a volume area that when viewed on the 3-day chart currently shines as one of the most attractive. But if we now look at the one-day view, sure, we still have this bar down here, but especially here, a big bar that shines, and here as well, which is quite conceivable, that these zone areas are initially attractive and will be targeted. Accordingly, here, once again, briefly, so we have a smooth sideways movement if one wants to see it that way. Exactly in the critical zone in the middle, it is not moving upwards nor downwards. It was testing here, but also the rejection. It was exactly the same at the top. It would be interesting now if the breakthrough finally happens here and is above these $2, 24, 25 plus or minus, breaks through there, and then continues upwards accordingly. So we do have quite a bit of movement here and also a lot of support, but neither strongly upwards nor downwards. And satire will first become interesting as it continues upwards. We will then be exactly within the Fibonacci line here, at this level where the next support should be, and then it will become really interesting again, upwards. Yes, a different picture with Ethereum. It feels like the entire map is empty except for here. Now, I don't want to jinx it, but for the market makers, this would probably be the most attractive zone. That could be targeted right now. Here's a quick look at the 4-hour view again. It's getting a bit more exciting now because the symmetrical triangle was cleanly broken through, but it didn't continue further. This high hasn't been broken yet either. So that's the nasty part of the situation. So we had the strong vector candle here, then setbacks, and then it went upwards. And now we are basically back to the same level as on Saturday. Now, one could only hope that the trend reversal finally comes and it continues upwards here. But also the RSI is quite high if you take a look at it right now. Well, what does quite high mean? There's still room to go up, but still. We will see what happens here now, but still Ethereum, yes. One could, of course, go ahead and say, okay, this is now an uptrend that has formed. That's correct so far. Now we just have to keep an eye on whether we fight our way back into this area. Or will there be a rejection here again? And then it just drifts sideways again. So yes, as I said, let's keep an eye on it, but Ethereum is still not really impressive right now. Not extremely impressive at the moment. That should be it for today. If you liked the video, feel free to leave a short comment. Write it down here below or leave a free like. Both boost the algorithm. And finally, I can give you the tip to check out this video. How can you cash out crypto anonymously? I have looked at the different options available. Feel free to check it out for yourself. Otherwise, we'll see each other tomorrow in the next update. Until then, all the best. Bye.